Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 105 of the Dynasty Junkies podcast, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I am your host tonight, Rocky Petrella at Dynasty FF Addict, along with my co-host Andrew Hall at Andrew Hall FF. We've got a very special guest tonight who we'll introduce in a minute. But Andrew, it's been a little while. How you been? And looking forward to tonight.
I'm good. I'm ready. Let's do this. Let's jump right into this. We're in the thick of redraft season, combining with dynasty season. There's no better time. There's no better time in fantasy football than July, August, in my opinion. Just let's do it.
And Scott Fishbowl is kind of the perfect combo of the two because it's definitely a redraft, but tons of dynasty people get in there from Twitter. And we have a very well-known SFB12 participant. SFB, kind of, I think the last 5 or 6 of them he's been in. You know him from Psych, from A Million Little Things, and of course from his pod appearance on Dynasty Junkies last year. James Roday Rodriguez. James, how you doing tonight?
I feel good. I don't know how many of your viewers / listeners remember WKRP in Cincinnati, but I'm feeling a little Johnny feverish today, gentlemen.
and I definitely want to thank you for coming back on, but especially because for those watching, they can see James wearing sunglasses. He had a little work done on his eyes today, so he's a trooper though, and stuck to the date and is here with us, and I'm very grateful for that, James.
Yes, that's right. I did some weird things to my flaps, and yeah, and I'm also under the influence of some relaxing narcotics, so. I feel pretty good, and congratulations on 105 episodes, man. That's not chump change.
Yes, thank you very much. I think you were about halfway through that. Somewhere in the 50s last year. Now you're back again. I'm really happy about that. Before we get into what we're going to talk about tonight, we did this last year, but this is what Scott Fishbowl is all about. So I wanted to do it again and just give you a chance to talk about couple of your charities that you have tagged to your social media, your Twitter bio and everywhere. You talked about them last year, but I'd like you to, for anybody who maybe didn't see last year's episode, I'd like you just to, spotlight those two again.
Yeah, 100%. Both very near and dear to my heart. You got Road Dogs. That's a dog rescue organization based out of Los Angeles. Amazing woman named Nikki Carver is doing the Lord's work. She basically adopts special needs dogs and makes them as comfortable as humanly possible for what little time they often have on this planet. And it's a fantastic organization that does beautiful work. And the other big one for me is Elephant Nature Camp. It's another incredible woman who's going across Eastern Asia, based out of Thailand, and one work camp at a time, trying to flip these elephant work camps into elephant sanctuaries and showing the owners that they can make just as much money treating their elephants the right way than they can having them, haul timber and be work elephants. So they need us more than ever. They're the beautiful giants, and I've spent some time over there myself, and it's absolutely magical. So those are my two biggies.
Yeah, so if you're in Scott Fishbowl, haven't donated to charity somehow yet, those are two great ones to kind of put your money towards. But let's get into the show. We just a little, I guess, spoiler alert. We will be talking about Psych 3 and A Million Little Things for a little bit here. But also, spoiler for those Psych and A Million Little Things fans who are tuning in just for the acting stuff. We are going to talk about that, but this is probably going to be a little more of a football-centric pod than last year. I think we spent maybe half the show talking about your work, James, last year. I don't think it's going to be quite that much this year.
Nobody needs it, Rocky. Nobody needs it. This is football season. Come on.
Exactly.
Training camps are about to start, for God's sake.
But I did want to talk about the two things that have happened since the last time you were on. Psych 3, which wrapped right around the time I think you came on, and then it aired in the fall last year on Peacock. And I got to say, I'm going to gush a little bit here. This has been my favorite Psych movie so far. I've enjoyed all three, but I kind of feel like each one you're getting figuring out a little more what Psych is as a movie, and I think it gets even better each time. So I got to say the aha joke was one of my favorite jokes in the history of the show, right down to the drawings and everything.
We really committed to that bit.
Yes, and probably the best use of "Come on, son" in the history of the show.
Yeah, over 15 years in the making, huh?
Yeah. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on. I also really love, by the way, I wanted to mention that a lot of nice little emotional beats, especially for a lot of the players that weren't really essential to the main storyline, with like Lassiter and Henry, and then Chief Vic all got nice little moments. So I enjoyed that as well. But I wanted to get your thoughts now that you can talk a little more about. So you couldn't really talk about it last year because that didn't come out, and I definitely wanted to ask, because I definitely did some Google research and have seen no confirmation on a Psych 4. So if there's anything you can tell us about that.
Well, for starters, I'm so thrilled that you dug the flick. They're always so absurdly fun for us to make. So the fact that anybody can have half as much fun watching them as we have making them, I think, is why Psych is still around. Frankly, that's sort of what we put out there, and as long as there's an appetite for it, we're happy to keep doing it. Psych 3, in many ways, I thought was a return to sort of I guess the bedrock of what we did on the series, which might be why it landed so well for you. It was really sending Sean and Gus down a rabbit hole, and then kind of buttoning it up with some heart, and kind of pushing everybody forward in their lives. And as far as Psych 4 goes, like I said, I think there's a lot of goodwill for this show. We've been incredibly lucky to be on this ride for as long as we have. We have support from our studio and our new network, the Peacock. And as always, it sort of comes down to everybody's schedules and finding a little window where we can all come together for a couple weeks and make it happen. But we always will, as long as, when there's a will, there's a way, man. Because they're like little family reunions too, and it gives us all a chance to kind of check in with each other and make sure that everybody's doing okay. So I would say chances are good for at least one more of these silly adventures. And I think probably one of the best days I've ever spent on a Psych set was the last day of shooting on Psych 3, which is when we did all the Henry and Lassiter stuff on the porch with his daughter. It's been a very challenging ride for Tim Amundsen these last few years, and to kind of see him back up there taking agency of his enormous talent and reminding us, just how phenomenal of an actor he is and how much adversity he's overcome. It was really beautiful. It was a really great day for all of us. So that's my little, there you go. There's my anecdote about Psych 3.
But yeah, I definitely agree. And definitely like I said, it came through great on screen as well. And I definitely hope there's a Psych 4. I had seen, like I said, my Google research, I did see Steve Frank saying that the Psych 4, or at least some future Psych, could get even a little more out there than the first 3 have been. And I'd be very looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, man, there's not a whole lot of rules in the Psych universe. We kind of follow the Scooby-Doo rule, which is just, come up with whatever crazy idea you can, but then you just have to be able to explain it somehow in the last 10 minutes. So we've been able to do just about everything we can think of, and that'll be the plan moving forward. So hopefully we'll bake up one more cake for you there, Rack.
Okay, appreciate it. Just for me, I'm sure. But also, A Million Little Things season 4 aired since you were last on. A lot of stuff happened there with Gary this past year. They kind of resolved the cliffhanger from season 3 with Sophie's music teacher, and then he got back with Maggie again. Spoilers if you haven't seen season 4, it's on you at this point. But man, that ending, James, man, Gary getting, the guy's cancer again, it seems, and is under treatment. What is going on? What are you doing to us here?
Right.
But if you know the show, then you should not have been surprised. No one's really allowed to have too much good fortune on this show. So the fact that things were going well for more than one episode should have been the only warning you needed to brace yourself.
And of course, it had to come right after the baby news and all that. Yeah,
of course. Otherwise, it'd be too high. There's nothing
high and low,
dramatically compelling about people just being happy.
Yeah.
You know? What does that show? Yeah, we're back in the thick of it, and we go back in about a month to knock out season 5, which I have no idea.
I was just gonna say, I assume there's nothing you can tell us about season 5.
Even if I could, I probably wouldn't, but it makes it easy because I actually don't know what's going on, and I won't think about it until I show up in Vancouver sometime in September.
Yeah, I want to jump in with a question on that. Like with Psych, it seems like you're so involved. It's such a family and all of that. With a million little things, it's got to be such a juxtaposition where you can kind of just show up and do what you're told. There's a little bit of pro and con to that, right? When you're not driving the bus, you can just kind of ride along, and just sort of do what they tell you to do. There's got to be a lot less stress, but it's a lot less freedom, I guess. Which do you prefer? Well,
A Million Little Things has been a great day job for me because, like you said, I show up, I do the work, I go, and it sort of frees up a lot of creative real estate for me to work on other stuff. So I kind of feel like it's the best of both worlds. It's a steady gig with some really good people that I care about, and then I can also keep making my own stuff. So
that's a good yin and yang. Yeah, you got to have a little bit of both, right?
Yeah, Psych was so all encompassing that it was amazing. It was an amazing trip, and you're right. I had my fingers all over that show, but it really was like my life. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the better part of a decade. And now I feel like I'm able to diversify a little bit more and do different things and take some shots that I never would have had the time to do when we were doing Psych as a show.
Sure.
And just going back to what James said earlier, Troy in the chat says, my wife in the chair next to me just says, that's the truth. About A Million Little Things having more than one good day in a row. It's just not possible.
No,
well, even in this season, they mentioned like, oh, we've all been in the hospital. And I was just like, yep, that's you're just going to consistently be in that hospital. That was a very kind of fourth wall break in a way. I thought that was great.
You got to be meta about it,
Right. And calling it out, it makes it less awkward. It's like, yep, we're always in a, it's just how it is.
So James has never done anything that's meta before, so.
No, that's true. It's a new concept for me. I don't know if I care for it yet.
You'll get there.
Reminds me, by the way, one of my other favorite jokes from Psych 3 is Burton Guster Rodriguez. I like that. It's always been there.
Right.
But one more question on this stuff, and then I'll get to a couple Twitter questions we had that are about sort of your work. Just wondering, you said you don't know what's coming up. Is there anything in particular you'd like to see for Gary going into the next season?
Yeah, I think Gary's development was sort of arrested because of his cancer diagnosis back in the day and his need to sort of fix everything that's happening with everybody else. I think the ultimate sort of reconciliation for Gary would be to look at himself and actually give the sort of the same energy and emotional real estate that he gives to others to actually improving himself and growing a little bit himself. I think it's easy to kind of, divert, what's happening with the person inside when you're constantly helping other people, right? It's a nice thing. It's a nice quality, but it's also a bit of a crutch to never actually deal with what's going on, in your own DNA. And that would be the thing I would wish for Gary is just like, look, man, these are grown-ups, these are grown-ass people. Like, let them take care of themselves, and you take care of you. Especially now that he's potentially going to be a dad. Like, what kind of dad do you want to be? You got to figure some stuff out, dude. You're a deeply flawed man, Mr. Mendez.
Yeah, this is true. Maybe by the finale that'll actually happen for him, the series finale. But let's get to. We have a few Twitter questions. All these non-football questions. We actually, I think, had a couple football Twitter questions last year, but these I think came from some of the Psych fans and fans of your other work, because that's what we're going to talk about, at least in one of these questions. Which the first one, it's from @It's Danny G. Does James see himself ever returning to theater? And what about making a horror movie or another movie like Gravy? And before James answers, I just got to say, I was not aware of Gravy before this question came in a couple days ago. So I decided to check it out. What an interesting movie, man. This is, if you watch this movie, do not expect anything like Psych, first of all. But although it is filled with a lot of pop culture references, which I loved. And you will see a couple familiar actors if you're a Psych fan as well, a hardcore Psych fan, you'll recognize, I think. But it's a crazy kind of comedy horror movie. You could tell everyone kind of enjoyed making it. It was just kind of a crazy flick. I actually really enjoyed it. But anyway, if you remember those questions after my rambling, go ahead and answer.
First of all, Danny G is one of the hardest core psychos who ever lived.
By the way, just before you finish, he actually, I set this YouTube link up 3 days ago. He put it out before I announced it that you were going to be on. He found it, and before I said anything.
He is my dude. He is OG through and through. A really good dude, Danny G, and always shows up. Heart's always in the right place. So shout out to him. I absolutely will go back to theater at some point. For sure. COVID sort of threw a big curveball to theater, and I feel like we're just now sort of starting to get back to what that can look like, and how we can sustain it and all of that. So at some point when it makes sense, 100%, I'll get back on stage because I love it. Those are my roots. That's how I got started, and I miss it, frankly. I will make more movies. I will make more horror movies. It's almost impossible for me to not write in the direction of, self-aware comedy and pop culture, because that's just sort of who I am. So, Gravy was the first movie I ever made. I felt like it was a pretty authentic representation of my voice and my best friend's voices as writers. It took us 8 years to get it made, which I'm sure you're thinking that's crazy. It took 8 years to get a cannibal comedy made. What's wrong with people? But it was some of the best times and the most fun that I've ever had in this business. It was such a wild sort of.
I can't believe they didn't see the mainstream appeal in a cannibal comedy.
It didn't, man. Yeah, and I love everybody who was involved in that movie. And I've always got stuff cooking, and hopefully before too long we'll be back at it again for sure.
Okay, and from @Juliet's Lorelei, what top 3 musicians has James been into lately? So you got any music recommendations for the people?
Yeah, let's see. My girl Hatchie, she's from down under. She's kind of like a dream pop artist who's heavily influenced by some of my very, very favorite bands of all time, like the Sundays, the Cranberries. She's contemporary. She's right now. There's a band called Wolf Alice out of the UK. Dropped a new record last year. Also very cool. I'm a big fan of female vocalists, so most of my stuff is going to be, women singing pretty. And then, I would say 85% of me never left the 80s, as I'm sure you can believe, early 90s. So I'm going to see Aha at the end of the month. I got tickets to Pet Shop Boys in New Order, who are playing together, next year in Vancouver. I always go back to the new wave stuff that sort of defined me, my formative years.
Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with the vintage 80s and 90s stuff. I'm here for it.
If it works, don't change it. I'm with you on that. You like what you like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's another band out of Brooklyn called Nation of Language that they're a trio, and they sound like they're making synth pop straight out of the mid '80s. I've been gobbling them up as well.
Yeah, I actually feel like there's a lot of kind of an '80s flavor in a lot of some of the stuff that's even coming out now, even the current stuff. If you're listening just to regular pop radio, yeah. But the last question we got was from @Lauren McD. I just thought this one was kind of interesting because it's very vague, so you can kind of take it whichever way you want. I don't know if she's talking about the TV fall season, the football fall season, or just fall in general. But she says, "What's something James is looking forward to most in the fall season?"
I want to see if the Titans are pretenders or contenders, man. I'm really curious to see what we look like this season. I think there's a lot of fancy pundit analyst type people that are predicting some negative regression, and obviously that's not what we're looking for as Titans fans. But it'll certainly be interesting, and there's some new faces, and we made some moves, and that's fall for me.
Okay, and that's actually a great segue into our next topic, James, because
I know you needed a segue, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that as a host, because I did want to ask you. I couldn't have you on without asking you about the Titans this year, because they had a lot going on this offseason. They got rid of Julio. They signed Robert Woods. Then the big shocker of the draft, they trade AJ Brown to my Philadelphia Eagles. And draft Treylon Burks. Also, minor moves, sign Austin Hooper. Lot of changes on that offense. So, what do you think about everything they've done? Also, I didn't even mention that they drafted Malik Willis in the third round. Yeah. So, they're kind of in the process of just totally remaking that thing. So, you just talked about it a little bit, but what do you think is going to happen? You're coming off the number 1 seed last year, and I think a lot of people are definitely not expecting that this year.
Well, as we know, defense wins championships, and our defense is looking better than it has in a long, long time. And I think they're playing with a lot of confidence, and I think Bowen has really sort of figured out how to use all those pieces, which I got to give credit where it's due. I did not think that was going to work out, but he's sort of turned it around, and so that's certainly comforting. I think there's a lot of pressure on Tannehill this season. He's starting to sort of look more like the guy that came over from Miami, and less like the guy that led us to the playoffs the last 3 years in a row. So I think this is a really big year for him, whether it's to stay put with us or get his next contract somewhere else. He's going to have to play better than he did last year. That's for sure. The trade was shocking, and, congratulations. It must be very exciting to know that Jalen and AJ are going to be together and already have some chemistry. But the truth is, the money that he wanted and the offense that we run, it didn't make sense. Like, you can't invest that much in a wide receiver 1 who doesn't really, play a typical wide receiver 1 position and isn't even on the field, for that many snaps. So I understood it, even though it was a bummer. And, Burks looks a lot like AJ Brown. So I mean, and this isn't me being a homer. This is like, all right, if I take a step back and like connect the dots and kind of look at the math about, what they were thinking, like, I get it. It makes sense. Robert Woods is healthy. He's a great leader for that room. Austin Hooper, I thought, was a very sneaky signing that nobody talked about much. We got almost nothing out of the tight end position last year. So that's it's immediate upgrade. And then, I buried the lead. What does it really come down to? It comes down to the king, and if he's fully healthy and what kind of load he can handle. I like the Haskins pick because, he's a power back that can come in and spell Derek so that he's not carrying the ball, 330 times. And then it's all, it's also about what happened, in that division. And I'm not scared of Jacksonville. I'm not, obviously nobody's scared of Houston, and people love to get on the Colts bandwagon, man. I don't know what it is about that team, but it's like there's some sort of weird conspiracy where every year it's like, all right, we're all gonna put.
It's true.
It's like when a weird little festival movie breaks through in every year, like at Sundance, and it's almost sometimes they're dope, and sometimes they're like, what? And it's just it's these locomotives that get out of control, and I feel like that happens with the Colts every year. And when's the last time they did anything? So, I'm cautiously optimistic, but training camp will definitely tell us something.
Yeah, I still think the Titans might be the class of that division. Like you said, I think it's probably them. It's got to be them or the Colts. Houston and Jacksonville are kind of train wrecks. I do like Jacksonville to improve with Doug Peterson there, former Eagles coach, but I don't see them challenging for the division, certainly. So yeah, I think he's still got a pretty good chance at a playoff spot. It'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out, though.
Well, the question I have for you is, what do you think about Malik Willis? Do you think he's the answer? Do you think he's the next guy? Or are you kind of like, man, we'll see what we get out of him, not really knowing what to think, I
mean, where we got him, there's no downside.
Right.
If he does turn out to be the next guy, like, what a steal. And if he doesn't, we took him in the third. Like, that's pretty good capital. I think he's got a lot of untapped potential. He's obviously a very athletic guy. The NFL is going to look very, very different to him than college did, but there's no rush. He can sit, he can learn, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and you're right. No risk, all reward. There's all upside there. It's a third-round pick. There are so many third-round picks that flame out in the NFL. It's like, meh, okay. But I think a lot of people were shocked that he went that far. Like, I think him and Ritter both were in that conversation with Pickett, and then neither one of them got taken in the second. I think a lot of fans are like, what do they know that we don't know? So I was curious if you had that same kind of fear, I guess.
I was there for that second day of the draft. I was lucky enough to I got to actually read one of our draft picks, which is like such a cool thing to be a part of when you know that
right.
a young dude's life is like changing in that moment and a dream is being realized. But there was definitely a vibe of like these quarterbacks are going to drop. You just watch. And that's what happened. Like, for all of the stuff we heard about, Pickett could go as high as, whatever, and right. Who's going to be the first one off the board. It could be any of these guys. The vibe once we got there, like amongst the people and, in the room where it happens was, look, these quarterbacks are going to drop.
They're all falling. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're right.
Okay, and we're also going to get into a little Scott Fishbowl talk. Before we do, somebody asked a question in the chat, so I wanted to put up here, going back, I guess, to kind of some of the non-football stuff. I'm totally going to butcher her name. Jillian? I'm sorry if I totally butchered your name. But what was it like for him to visit the Grant for the first time?
Oh, I was very moving. The Grant is a bar that I own a piece of in East Los Angeles, and the reason I made the investment is because I wanted to pay tribute to my dog Frank, who I had for a decade and who crossed the Rainbow Bridge a few years back. And the only art on the wall in the whole place is this beautiful portrait rendering of him, and to see it. In a picture is one thing, but to stand there and sort of see it up close and sort of feel all of that was very special. And I'm so glad I did it. And the Grant's doing great. It survived the worst of the pandemic. And, if you're ever in Glossel Park or Highland Park or Eagle Rock and want a really good cocktail, head over there to the Grant.
There you go.
There you go.
Small plug.
Gotta get this plug in.
Gotta.
But so Scott Fishbowl, we're gonna bring up your roster in a minute and talk about that. But first, you are in the Twin Peaks division and picked at number 7. I'm sure you chose the Twin Peaks division, which makes a lot of sense given your 80s, 90s sensibility. But I guess talk a little bit about that. And did you pick 7, or did you just end up with that?
Ended up with 7. As soon as I saw that it was going to be cities, I was like, I know he didn't forget about Twin Peaks. So that was a no-brainer for me. And man, I got the coolest group. I'm sure some of them joined because they're Twin Peaks fans. Some of them probably knew that I was in there and wanted to hang out with me in the chat room. We had a blast. Very, very generous. We came up with some really fun ways to raise more money. It was a really generous group. I challenged them. I was like, I'm going to send $100 to Toys for Tot for every Titan that lands on a roster in this division.
There you go.
And we got 12, which is way too many.
Yes. I think that's too many for almost any roster, for any team and any roster.
Like, oh man, you had to get deep there.
It's a real testament to the spirit of the group that we had. And then they were all making donations to my charities and other charities. It was a really good group, and I was very touched, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of.
Yeah, we have a Dynasty Junkies listener Dynasty League, and one of the guys in there is in the division, Stephen Munger, I believe his name is. Yeah, and he had mentioned the charity. He mentioned that today when we told him you were coming on, and he's like, yeah, he got a lot of stuff rolling in there. There's a lot of good charity work going on in there. So good to hear.
It's all about connection, getting people together that don't get together, talking about charities you don't hear about. It's a great way to get a lot of information and a lot of notice, I guess, to smaller things. So it's awesome that it's working out like that.
Yeah, it was pretty special. Props to all of those folks. I honestly told them at the end of the draft, like, it would be my honor to lose every game because they were all so cool.
I did want to ask, actually, because I didn't look it up before we get into this year's roster. I know I meant to mention this at the top of the show for anybody thinking, what is this actor doing on a fantasy football podcast? This is a guy who went 11-0 a couple years ago in SFB and won a Dynasty League this past year with the likes of guys like JJ Zacharyson and Rich Rebar and some other guys in there. So congrats first on that, James. But also, I wanted to know, how did last year's SFB go? I imagine you did not go undefeated.
I did not go undefeated. I was the poster boy for mediocrity. It was not, especially coming off the season before. It was pretty forgettable for me. I don't even remember who I had, but it did not go well.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I did mine either, James. So I'm right there with you. I did not make the playoffs. I wouldn't even qualify myself as mediocre. I think I won like 4 games last year. So right there with you. So, but we will bring up James' roster. Let me share my screen here. I know we're going to do some listener submissions too, which I know James said he may have trouble seeing the screen because of the issues with his eyes, but I'm hoping he knows his roster fairly well.
No, that's not bad. I can see that. Actually, I can see that pretty well.
Okay, well, for those listening, we'll run through some of the highlights. Russell Wilson in the first, Mark Andrews when it came around into the second, CeeDee Lamb, Tua. His running backs are Montgomery, Sanders, and then he took Algier as his third RB in the ninth. So it's got kind of really needs a lot from Montgomery and Sanders there, I think. The rest of them are the 13th and beyond. But like his receivers, CeeDee Lamb, Terry McLaurin, Amon-Ra, who I believe you drafted last year. I think I remember talking about him last year.
Yeah.
Russell Gage, of course, had to get Treylon, and. That's kind of the highlights there. There's a lot of guys on that other side. He did get Ritter and Trubisky as potential QB3s, which I actually kind of like that.
Yeah,
because Trubisky could start the season and then Ritter could finish the season, and you have a QB3 for the entire season. But I guess talk a little bit about your roster, and Andrew, maybe if you want to chime in on what you think of what James did after he finishes up.
Sure. As we all sort of feel compelled to do, it was best quarterback on the board in the first round, which, for our draft, I think it was all quarterbacks 1 through 6. So Russ was the best guy sitting there. I just hope they let him cook, but he certainly has plenty of weapons in Denver. So that felt good. Andrews, best player available in round 2, especially in this format. My plan in the third round was to take Derrick Henry or Kyle Pitts, and they actually went in order 2 picks before me. So
nothing better than that. Ugh.
So CD was the pivot. If the kid doesn't become a superstar this year, then it's not going to happen because it's really set up for him to explode in that offense. 4th round, it was between Tua and Tannehill, so that was a tough decision for me.
One with your brain and not your heart. One of those decisions. Yeah,
I did. Again, they've just put so much talent around him in Miami, and it's a make or break year. So gambled on that. Montgomery, if he stays healthy, he's one of the few bell cows in the NFL. Felt like a decent enough foundation there. McLaren, I was shocked, was still hanging around, probably because his quarterback is Carson Wentz, but
yeah,
it still felt like pretty good value there in the 6th. Sanders, I needed another running back. And again, I think they proved that when they run the ball, they can have some success in Philly, take some of the pressure off Jalen. AJ, I think, is certainly going to help things for that running game. Again, if he can stay healthy, that could be cool. Amon-Ra, we saw what he did last year. If he can just do sort of a solid wide receiver 2 numbers, I'm not going to be bummed about that. And then my big reach for the whole draft was Algier. I mean, who knows? I'm looking at the competition for carries in that backfield, and it just doesn't look that stiff to me. So he's a guy that just bowls over people and is very hard to bring down. And I would think we'll get some carries at the goal line. And if he's a complete wash, hopefully James Robinson will be back and give me some.
Mostert, you got some good depth. I mean, Boston Scott backing up Sanders, but Algier is definitely the one that I was looking at and saying, oh man, what was the thought process there? Because I just think that's early. But at the same time, in Scott Fishbowl, get your guy, right? I mean, you can't trade anything. There's no one way to win this league. So I love being risky. I have no qualms at all about going, hey, I think he's going to be the guy. Go get him, right? You don't know if he's going to be there on the way back.
That was definitely my get my guy moment. And then Gage.
Sneaky. I like that pick.
He's a big sleeper this year.
Yep.
Godwin coming off the injury, Gronk saying that he's done for good. I think there's going to be a lot of targets for Russell Gage, and he never drops the ball. So
that's right.
And then Treylon, I had to have a Titan. And I like the fact that he had a sort of inauspicious start at OTAs, couldn't stay on the field, was having asthma because I think that's why it dropped. So where I got him, I was pretty happy to get him.
Well, that's great too. As rounding out your starting lineup, having a Tennessee guy, the rookie, I mean, that makes it fun. You don't have to stack him with Tannehill to have fun with that. That's kind of a nice thing. I know I'll briefly talk about my roster. I'm not going to get into it, but I'm a Bengals fan, as you can probably see on the wall behind me. And I got 4 Bengals on my roster. I'm happy about that. I got Burrow, I got Higgins, I got Boyd, I got McPherson. Like, I am just, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, let's just load them all up, because that way, if my team does well and I win the Scott Fish Bowl, it's a great year. If my team does terrible and I lose the Scott Fish Bowl, well, it was never my year to begin with, So it's kind of like it's all or nothing at this point. So I totally respect going with your heart at some point. And where else but Scott Fish Bowl? Might as well. You know what I mean? So I love that team. I thought you did well.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. And you got to remember to have fun, especially when it's for such a good cause. So
exactly.
It's easy to sort of take a little bit of a different perspective when you draft these teams.
That's the way to do it.
Definitely. You always want a different perspective because you're trying to compete against 3,000 people this year. So
exactly. It's a monster field.
Yeah, exactly. The biggest ever. So we did say we were going to take listener submissions. I mentioned this on our Twitter thread, but I got a much bigger response than I expected. I think over 40 people, screenshotted their rosters. So we're gonna run through as many as we can here. Certainly not 40. We're not keeping James here until Friday. So, but the first one, actually, I mostly pulled these at random, and is actually from someone in your division, James. I was just going to say,
what a start. Yeah,
I actually know this guy's name's Jay. You may remember from the chat, Jay Toll.
Yeah.
Yep. So here's his roster. Some of the highlights: Dak in the first, CMC, Chase, Kamara, Went with Tannehill as his QB2. Waited till the 15th to grab Mariota as his QB3. Did Freiermuth not until the 9th round as his only tight end. His other receivers, Hollywood, Brandon Cooks, Christian Kirk, Robert Woods, driver's license. So he got some pretty good depth there for waiting after Chase for a lot of them. So Andrew, what do you think of this roster?
I was going to say stacked Titans on this one, right? He went with Tannehill, Woods, and Hooper. I mean, he's kind of going with the same logic I was just saying, but taking the players from Mr. Roday Rodriguez over here. Like, wait a minute, that's your team, buddy. Like, what the?
You also said Randy Bullock, which I think again
that's true. Yeah,
it's true. Yeah.
We're just trying to raise money. So,
but see, I love that. He's like, I'm going for Titans. That's what makes this game fun, right? And I know, I think you guys are on one of the MFL leagues where you can start 0 to 4 kickers. Kickers are going to be an interesting wild card this year, right? Like it's so unknown about what that's going to do. And I know, and I'm in the live draft, so I'm on a sleeper league, and you have to start a kicker. So it's a little bit different, and that's where I think it's going to make some variation. And I know Rocky and I have had some discussions about this on and off the podcast about MFL versus sleeper. But I guess I was curious too, while we're bringing this up, and you mentioned Randy Bullock. What are your thoughts about kickers in SFB? Is that something you were excited about? I mean, we did it last year. Did you feel like it was a good idea? Is it kind of like meh?
It's always going to be a little meh for me. I did grab Boswell in the last round just because at that point you're throwing darts that are so deep.
Right.
It's like, well, at least I know Boswell's going to put up points every week. And,
right.
And who knows how prolific that Pittsburgh offense is going to be. They might be kicking a lot of field goals.
Yep.
I think it's fun strategy wise. Do I want to be the guy that is like licking his chops at the end of the season, feeling good because he started 7 kickers? Like, no, but if you do it and it works, good for you.
It's all about risk. We were talking about that before, right? Most of the kickers aren't going in the first 11 rounds. You're not picking a lot of them as a starter. So, you can get a guy, in this case, Randy Bullock, in your case, Boswell, one of those players with a high floor. That's not a bad idea. But back to this one and back to Jay's roster. I think this is actually a great roster. Jamar Chase at 302, Kamara at 411, if he's not suspended at all. I mean, those are steals in those early rounds. You're just backing up. I mean, you could have 2 top 5 running backs in that, and that's going to be hard to beat for any team. And then Chase in the third. Oh, I'm jealous. Yeah,
I'm with you, Andrew. I kind of love this roster. Tannehill, we'll see how that shakes out at QB2. That's the only one, and he's got no QB3, but he made up for it to me. I mean, the 2 running backs could be amazing, CMC and Alvin Kamara, especially if he doesn't get suspended. And I love like every receiver he went with, like Chase, Hollywood.
Those are all
Cooks,
your guys,
Kirk.
yeah.
and Woods could be the wide receiver 1 for the Titans this year. So, and like you said, you got the little mini stack with Tannehill, Woods, and Hooper, kind of the low end stack. So yeah, I like this one a lot. And if you're going to wait till the 9th to draft a tight end, Freiermuth seems like a pretty decent one.
He's going to be a security blanket for whoever's taking
right.
snap.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of talk, obviously, like the Steelers got rid of Roethlisberger, and I would say they upgraded to whoever it is, whether it's Trubisky or Pickett, and I think that's only going to help the offense, but there's a lot of people that are kind of like, oh, man, I don't know, they got rid of Roethlisberger, and that offense is going to take it down. I don't know how it can get much worse. I mean, that guy could barely throw the ball. He was, 40 years old, and I'm, as someone who was 40, it's like, it's not that easy, man. Like, just take a nap, brother. Yeah, I totally get it.
He was a liability. They were winning despite him, not because of him.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so
I have Bose up if you want.
Yeah, I was trying to get it up, and it was not coming up for me. I think I might be mistyping it or something.
Well, I think we'll do this one. See if that works.
He just drafted a bunch of clouds.
That's an interesting draft strategy. See how it works.
See, it works, yeah. Well, here's Bose. I know Bo was in the live draft in San Francisco.
Okay.
It's coming up. His first few picks, he's got Justin Herbert, Kyle Pitts, Darren Waller, Leonard Fournette, Zeke Elliott, and Justin Fields paired with Cole Kmet there. So he went tight end bully with no receivers in the first 7 rounds and 3 tight ends. I mean, that's a different build. Again, we were talking about this a minute ago. If you're going to go with something different to stand out, this is the team to do that with. Herbert and Fields as your 2 main QBs. He did take your boy Malik Willis in the 21st, backed up with Haskins in the 22nd. So he got some Titans at the end there. Not that it wasn't in the Twin Peaks, but still, like, that's nice of him to help out the podcast tonight. But I mean, again, what do you think about Fields and Kmet? I think those two could be sleepers this year and be a possible stud duo.
Yeah. I mean, who else is catching passes? You got Darnell Mooney, who I guess everybody's going to plan for.
Well, N'Keal Harry now, right? N'Keal Harry is going to be the wide receiver one there. No, nobody believes that. Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think to me, Pitts is sort of like a slam dunk. There's no way he only scores one touchdown again, and he already was putting up, the yards and getting the targets. So I like going with. I wanted him. I wanted him on my squad. Yeah. Waller, interesting. See how he's affected by the arrival of big shot Devontae. Fournette apparently needs to hit the treadmill and get going before the season starts. I think. Yeah, look, this is almost sort of like a namey version of a zero running back strategy.
It's like a zero receiver. He's got like Bateman, Elijah Moore, Brandon Ayuk, Tyler Lockett, Sky Moore. Like these are all like wide receiver twos, kind of people that you're not studs, but could easily be great players. And then you get Fournette and Elliott, and then kind of quiet after that running back. So yeah, it's top heavy. I like it.
Fading wide receiver is a fairly popular strategy in SFB, and this is kind of the reason why. I mean, he's got a lot of guys with some pretty good upside here. Bateman and both Moores, I would say. Even KJ Osborne in the 17th. I could see a path for him. Like if Thielen falls off a little bit at his age and Osborne emerges a little bit. So yeah,
Madison too, right? If Cook gets hurt, which he's had a little bit of issues with, and running backs in general tend to get hurt. So, I mean, it's not a down tick on anything. It's just Madison could be a steal in the 16th round,
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go on to the next one, and maybe we keep doing this and just switching back and forth, Andrew, so you can pull up the next one, and then we'll make it a little easier. But this one is at Gold Jackets QB in the Super Mario division. He started off with 3 straight running backs. Did not draft a quarterback till the 5th. JT, James's guy, Derrick Henry, and Aaron Jones to start. Mac Jones in the 5th. His QB2 is Deshaun Watson in the 11th, and Baker Mayfield backing him up in the 12th. So he should have a second guy, but if you're starting Baker for half to all the year, that scares me a little bit. And then he went heavy on receiver, kind of around all those picks with Evans, DJ Moore, Judy, Hopkins, Ayuk, a lot of receivers on the later half of the draft too, kind of dart throws. So James, what do you think? This is a little different build than any we looked at so far. To me, waiting on those quarterbacks like this, I'm a wait on quarterback and dynasty guy, but in redraft, you can't get the value later because everyone's just trying to score points anyway. You can get value on guys like Tom Brady and Cousins because they're older or people just don't like them for whatever reason in dynasty. And in redraft, that doesn't happen. So this scares me, but what do you think?
If those top 3 running backs stay healthy, he's going to be able to hang. If they don't, he's in trouble.
Yes.
I personally don't see Deshaun Watson taking a snap this season. So you're looking at Mac Jones and Baker Mayfield.
That's scary. I know a lot of people like Mac Jones is sort of a sleeper type in this format because they think he's going to complete a lot of passes and things like that. That's great that he's not taking the negative. Like if he finishes at 66% or more, it's not taking the negative for completions. But where are the touchdowns coming from? Like Tyquan Thornton, Devontae Parker, like where are the touchdowns coming?
I mean,
who knows, right?
He put his stock in 3 really good running backs, and I hope for his sake that they stay healthy and that some other stuff goes wrong for the people that he's playing.
Well, King Henry, you gotta love that, right? Come on, it's got your boy there.
I got plenty of faith in Derek. Jonathan Taylor's obviously a beast. Aaron Jones, obviously, it comes down to what's that split going to look like, and how many touchdowns is he going to lose to Dylan. Mike Evans is just Mike Evans. And until he stops being Mike Evans, he's a wide receiver 1, and you got to feel good about that. Who's throwing to DJ Moore? I don't know what that looks like.
Is Baker, right? In theory, it could be Baker.
He's got the stack.
Yeah, he got. I guess if he gets to play the whole year, we don't know yet, right? Darnold might still be there. Maybe they sign Cam Newton again. I mean, honestly, Carolina is just a little bit of a train wreck, and I love it.
I mean, who's the guy that you want? The reason I didn't stack Russ is because I was like, I just don't know.
Same.
I think his number is going to look great, but I can't figure out like who his go-to.
Who do you trust?
I think it's going to be Sutton.
I think so too. But again, it's literally.
So we could be totally wrong.
Yeah. Don't sleep on Tim Patrick either. Like
that's right.
There's a lot of mouth to feed in Denver.
Yep, and both running backs are good pass catcher. I mean, it's probably going to be spread around pretty heavily. So, Andrew, you have the next one up.
I'm ready to go. Yep. So the next one comes to us from Shuey FF. I'll add that one. Here we go. So first QB, we got Lamar Jackson and Kirk Cousins, your boy there, Rocky. I know you're a huge Kirk Cousins fan. Round 3, you went with DeAndre Swift, Mike Evans in the 4th, Travis Etienne in the 5th. Some names we're familiar with. I will say this is the first team that doesn't have any Titans on it, so I'm guessing James hates it. But but what do you think about this one, James? Again, a little bit different build than we've seen, but Lamar Jackson, Kirk Cousins, and then wait until Mariota and Huntley in the 3rd to back up Lamar as your 4th quarterback. I mean,
before James chimes in, I wanted to just throw it to another guy who might want to comment on some of these rosters.
We have an opinion.
Yeah, but we have another guy who might know a little bit about Scott Fish Bowl rosters that's joining us here. That'll be Mr. Scott Fish himself, and in the dark, because I think he's outside somewhere.
Yeah, it's actually really dark here, but I still have my shades on because I saw James was wearing shades. And I think that was a cool thing to do.
Glad you got the memo, Scott.
How's it going, guys?
Good, Scott.
Let me try coming into the light.
Yeah, if you can see this roster here.
We're just shamelessly tearing apart people's rosters as if ours are better. That's basically where we're at in the show.
I assume that's why he invited 3,000 people, so he could just have more people to bash on this thing. Just like these are all terrible. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we can bash Scott's pretty soon too. So.
Yeah.
No, there are 2,999 better than mine.
There you go. Yes,
I had some tough ones in my division. My 9-year-old was just really tough on me.
I heard a lot of good things about his roster. Yeah,
he's an interesting case study because he doesn't know Dynasty. He doesn't know Twitter hype. He doesn't follow podcast sleepers. So when people are taking like Cole Kmet and Gabriel Davis and stuff, he's like, I'll take Melvin Gordon and Amari Cooper. He's just racking up points. He doesn't know what the hype is,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, maybe that's what it takes to win, right? You never know. This thing is so awesome. I love what you've done with the scoring every year, tweaking it. Nobody ever gets complacent. Every year is like, man, what are we going to do this year? We got to figure out a whole new thing. I love it.
Yeah. That's done on purpose to make people think.
Very smart. Well, we'll get back to Shuey for a second. I guess, Scott, you're looking at the roster. I don't know if you can see it on yours, but I mean, what do you think about this one as opposed to you mentioned Melvin Gordon? I mean, maybe this is a roster your son would like.
I actually threw my glasses back on because they're prescription, and I need to be able to read it.
I mean, Lamar, Kirk Cousins, DeAndre Swift. It's a solid start.
This is probably a roster I would like.
Yeah.
I like getting a couple quarterbacks early. I like having at least one strong running back. He's got a couple and Gordon's going to be fine. I like this roster, man. I probably would have tried to grab a tight end earlier, but for waiting that long, that's
this is our first opportunity to talk Travis Etienne and what we think that might look like in this newly vamped Jacksonville offense with a new coach. It's kind of a wild card, but if it hits, good for Shuey.
Well, coming off of injury too, Etienne's kind of a risky player in general this year. There's a lot of question marks around him, but you're right. If he hits, that's a 5th rounder. If Etienne's a top 10 running back, you're crushing it. That's a great value.
100%.
All right, Rocky, you got the next one?
Yeah, I got the next one. We're trying to kind of lightning round some of these going forward so we can get as many in as possible. This is from @JPeakFF. He started QB, which is what I also did. Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers for him. Grabbed Elliott and Connor in the 4th and 5th. Damian Harris in the 8th. So that's kind of his main running back core. Took Devontae in the 3rd. McLaurin, Thielen, Lockett is his the 2 through 4. Took a flyer on Sky Moore in the 13th, and that was pretty much it. For some reason, he drafted Darius Slayton late, which I have no idea why. So that pick's not so great. But another guy went with Pat Freiermuth as his main tight end in the 9th. Goff as his QB3. So James, what are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, look, the first 11 rounds. He played it pretty safe, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you got tried and true dudes here. I mean, it's like sometimes for me, I'm like, I got to do something wild and sexy. Like, what's the euphoria pick? But this is a really solid drafter. Like, he's going with known quantities, and if he gets 80% of the production that these people gave last year, he's going to be in there. He's going to be right in there.
I like what he did with the 2021 stacks with Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, and Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. Like, I just don't know if this guy got the magazine for this year, right? He's like, wait a minute, Adams is where? You know what I mean? Like, I love that. Like, going with the old school stacks. Maybe that works. I don't know. It's a different tactic.
And, Etienne comes back healthy.
Yeah.
We know that Rodgers trusts him. That could be a steal on the 14th.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like this build in general. I'm just not super high on Rodgers. I think he's gonna. It's gonna be hard to see where all the touchdowns are coming from. I'm afraid Jones and Dillon are gonna gobble a lot of those up. So I mean, he is Aaron Rodgers, so probably find a way.
I was gonna say he went QB 11. Like, even if you're not high on Rodgers, QB 11 feels like a decent point.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so Andrew, you want to pull up the next one?
Yep, I got the next one here. Dynasty Eeyore in the Madison, Wisconsin division, which I know Scott is. Was that a live draft? I don't think it was. Right, this is the slow Madison.
No,
yeah, the Minneapolis, I think, was the other one. But yeah, so Dynasty Eeyore over here. Corey Deaton, I'm friends with him actually. He's in a couple leagues with me. But Tom Brady, Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, T. Higgins, Ryan Tannehill start. So again, back to the Titans. He's also got Austin Hooper as one of his tight ends. Pat Freiermuth. We're seeing a lot of Freiermuth on teams today. Which is interesting. I mean, again, Waddle, Darnell Mooney, Drake London, that's a solid receiving group. But after Tom Brady and Ryan Tannehill, crickets at the QB position. This is a risky move, in my opinion. I know that with the way you set up scoring, Scott, I mean, quarterbacks can be a punishment to start a bad quarterback. I know last year, I think I had -5 points from somebody, and I was like, man, I would have been better off not starting anyone in that position. Yeah. Like, oh, man, because it just gets brutal. So maybe there is some logic in only picking 2 quarterbacks and saying, screw it. After that, I don't care. I just don't want the negative. But this is another different build. I mean, Higgins in the 4th. I love that, obviously, as a Cincy fan. But, I mean, Brady, I love Brady at QB8. I think he's a stud in this format. So what do you think, James? I'll kick it to you first. What do you think about this roster?
I think everybody took Pat Freiermuth in the 9th round.
I know. Exactly.
That's what it feels like.
That's what I've learned. Again, I think it's pretty solid. Like, I don't really see any huge reaches here. I think, you're counting on Darnell Mooney to be a guy you can start every week. Hopefully that comes true for this drafter. I had Drake London on my radar for sure. It feels like he could get a lot of targets in that offense. I guess the depth doesn't stand out quite as much as some of the other drafts we've looked at. So you're really hoping that your starters stay healthy and deliver the goods here.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Snoop Connor, David Bell, Zamir White, some of those like long reach, potentially starting guys. But I mean, at that round, you're just trying to have anybody with upside. I don't mind that, kind of going with those late picks at all.
I do kind of like in deeper drafts. A lot of times I'm taking dart throws at wide receiver late. In SFB, I kind of like those 2nd and 3rd running backs just in case you hit the Elijah Mitchell before the waivers.
Well, and there's no trading either, so you're kind of stuck. If you don't have a running back, you're going to need him, and with 22 roster spots, that's pretty deep. Yeah. So, I mean, this is
James is right. I don't feel like this team is like it's a starting lineup, and he's going to have troubles on buys and injuries unless someone really steps up. I think James is right.
Watch that waiver wire. Exactly. You may already be submitting claims,
I totally agree on the running backs. We didn't bring up Andrews in mind to try and get to more of the listeners, but that's exactly what I did on this second half here. The right side here, there's a lot of red. I was trying to nail a lot of running backs, and hopefully I hit on 1 or 2 of them. It's injured starter, a guy emerges, or something like that. Before we move on to the next one, though, Scott, I wanted to get your thoughts. I've made the point, and I could be completely off base because I didn't go back and look at the rosters, but everyone says about how they, you really need a different build, 3,000 people, and that makes a whole lot of sense. But I feel like I've been in the last three, and I feel like that the winners haven't necessarily had crazy builds. Like there's not guys drafting like 5 tight ends to start or waiting on quarterback until the 10th round. What are your thoughts on the whole you have to be different kind of thing?
I think it depends on the year. I will say that the teams that end up in the top 10 generally have a couple stud running backs and their quarterbacks hit. Last year, the guy who won it all, he hit on 7 of his first 8 picks, and for the fantasy playoffs, he had the Burrow Chase stack.
Mm-hmm.
So like
it went off. Yeah.
Something like that's just gonna like if you hit on 7 of your first 8 picks and you have that stack for the playoffs, that's how he won it.
Hard to lose when you have that, yeah.
Okay, so I'll pull up the next one. We have this guy, Scott Fish, 24.
Oh, that's terrible.
Here it is.
With Kyle Pitts at 112.
Dude, you went and got your guy. Good on you.
That's me and SFB. I don't even care anymore. I just get my guys. That's what it's turned into. But no, I actually don't like this team at all. Honestly, the people I was drafting with every time I'm on a corner, every time I tried to project what would happen between my corner and the next corner, I was dead wrong. I got tail ends of runs. It was not a good draft for me. I don't even expect to make the playoffs with this thing.
It feels like just seeing this. It feels like you might be one of the higher drafters on Cole Kmet too. I feel like I saw him going later than the 612.
Yeah, actually, our draft that's tight end 11. Our draft got really tight end heavy early.
Right. Well, I do like the Hurts pick though. I'm pretty high on Hurts for 2022, and my feeling is I drafted him as well, so obviously I'm high on him. But my feeling is his floor is probably even if he just does what he did last year, he's a QB1, and I think there's like the small percentage outcome chance that he goes nuts and he improves as a passer and he runs a lot and him and Kyler have to me kind of break fantasy potential.
Yeah.
I like the Russell Gage pick, not just because I made it, but because I think that's a guy that you probably leave in your starting lineup all season.
Which guy?
Russell Gage.
Oh yeah, yep. I was actually happy with the wide receivers I got, considering I waited till the 9th round to even start getting them. But I figure I can make 3 wide receivers out of those guys and the waivers at a lot of the season.
Well, and this was a live draft too, right? You did this the first few rounds?
No, this one wasn't.
It wasn't.
We had like 60 some people show up for the Minnesota live draft, so we only did 4, and I stepped back.
Gotcha.
It was insane. I went to the Minnesota and LA live drafts, and they were both just crazy awesome. The Minnesota one, we did 2 drafts, and then we did 2 drafts after. In between pause, I went out to get food and drinks and stuff, for my 9-year-old son who's there with me, Ian. He's Scott Fish Bowl on this if you look him up. If you're looking, but so he's using like the commissioner account.
I want to see Ian's team. I'm also going to go through some drops
on that one up. I got it.
Keep talking. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what do you say? He's going to go what?
I'm not sure. Something about the dog, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was I saying? Something about the live draft. But the live drafts were
you mentioned Ian's team before he.
The gap in the middle. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we were at the live draft, and Ian during the first draft, he's announcing picks and stuff, and he's actually like giving people a little bit of crap on picks and stuff.
That's awesome.
Where did he learn that from, Scott?
I don't. Well, it might be. It's just him, actually.
He's not on Twitter.
I do that at my home league, though. We nice. Do that at our home league, but we were in between the drafts. You can pull up Scott Fishbowl.
I got it up. Yeah, let's. I was going to wait for James, but we can start into it here. So
pull it up.
So here we go. Josh Allen at the 101. Smart kid. Honestly, that's a great pick. There's nothing wrong with that.
Wow, chasing the 212.
Yeah.
Where I was going.
Chase.
Oh man. Yeah. That's a good getting him there. I feel like I mean, you can see Michael Carter scored points last year. J.D. McKissick scored points last year. Like, and he's back where he is. Like Corey Davis, who's to say he's not the target leader there? You know,
honestly, you never know. Yeah,
like Devin Duvernay could easily be the number 2 wide receiver in Baltimore. My son was just like, I'm just gonna keep plucking points here. You know, like
honestly, he reminds me of a couple of guys that I know of, but one of them is the kind of guy who shows up to our annual Keeper League redraft, getting the magazine on the way to the draft, doing no research at all, and just being like, "How is Amari Cooper still here?" And he goes up, and you're like, "Damn it, how is Amari Cooper still like?" His team is great every year, and he does no prep, and it's just like, wow, he just goes for value and he just nails it. So yeah, Ian crushed this draft.
Yeah, I feel like
Elliott. Oh man.
Yeah. When he took like, it seemed like it felt like everybody was just avoiding Elliott, and when he got back to, like, you can see it's on the other corner, 401 to 512. When it got to 512, he's like, "What's like?" Just like you said, he's like, "Why is Elliott still here?"
There's some news I didn't hear. Yeah,
that's exactly. First downs galore between those two.
Yeah, he took him immediately. Yeah, it's not bad, and like he follows the NFL draft, so like he had rookies that he had wanted to get, but he didn't get all of them, but he got a couple of them. And
no, that's awesome.
What was
it's a good team. It's a good team.
Yeah, it's not bad. Oh,
Jimmy G. I mean, that could be a good pick. Jeez.
Yeah, I know. He was very interested in the Atlanta Falcons calling.
I saw that on Twitter. Did they answer?
Yeah. Oh man, it was fun. But yeah, like through 5 rounds of his draft, I'm like, what is going on, Ian? You're just taking but what was I saying? Oh, at the live draft.
Yeah.
So we were in between the rounds and in between the 2 drafts, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get in there and get these drafts started. I walk into the room where they're doing the drafting, because it's like a bar and there's like stuff, and then there's 2 rooms that we have for the drafting. I walk in there and I'm like, I noticed it's halfway through the first, and everybody's like, he's got it. He's got it. Ian got up,
no way.
Made a speech, started the drafts,
oh my God,
announcing the first round picks, doing the stickers. And
in a few years, it's going to be Ian Fishbowl.
Yeah.
I know. I was like, you are a 9-year-old menace out there.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll hit a few more that were sent in from Twitter, and then we'll finish up with James's league and find me a trade. So
perfect.
This one's from @DinoMC. Mitch from Dynasty Theory. When I pulled this up, I was just curious. The thought occurred to me. He's in the Valhalla division, so we have all these fake places. Do you come up with all these on your own, or did you ask people for some fake submission, like fake city submissions, or?
I actually this is the first year I did not choose any of the divisions. I there's just too much to do nowadays that I the guys that make the avatars and the banners and the design team, like that, the Avi makers, I was like, you know what, you guys just pick all the cities, and if you don't have enough, pick a bunch of fake cities. And the second that came out, they just went wild.
Oh,
yes,
because they're the ones that have to design all the banners and design all the avatars, and I'm like, you guys figure out the ones you want to do, and we'll just throw them out there.
Such a cool idea.
That actually makes a lot of sense and saves you a bunch of work.
Yes, exactly.
You got plenty to do. Yeah.
Okay, so Dino MC, he took Lamar at 105. I feel like a lot of people waiting on their second QBs. Justin Fields at 605 was his QB2. Saquon in the 3rd, and then didn't go again at running back till Miles Sanders and Chase Edmonds in the 8th and 9th. Barely drafted running backs at all. Got Jerick McKinnon in the 17th, and then Gio in the 22nd. But he has Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins. Got Wentz as a QB3. Jarvis Landry late, which I say a lot of people seem to get him in that 13th, 14th range. He may end up being a decent value. I kind of like this team. I think maybe he can piece together that QB2. I'm definitely worried about running back, although I do think Miles Sanders is a bit of a value that's kind of going underrated. Sure. But James, what do you think?
I agree on Sanders. As we established, he's on my squad. I'm interested for all the people that took DeAndre Hopkins and are probably thinking, as soon as he's back from suspension, I just plug him in. I think that's an interesting narrative to follow this season. If he just picks up right where he left off, and he and Kyler are back in business, and he's a clear number 1, or what if Kyler and Marquise Brown become BFFs over those 6 weeks?
College teammates.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't know exactly what we get from DeAndre when he comes back. So that'll be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, Hopkins, I think wasn't maybe as good as people think he was last year. I mean, he didn't have the volume he usually gets, and he was living a lot off of touchdowns last year, which is good if you're getting them. But yeah, we'll see with if the volume ticks up this year. I mean, missing 6 weeks doesn't seem like a good omen for that. So we'll see how it goes, though. Andrew, you got the next one, and maybe we'll do two more after that.
Sounds good. Yep. So the next one I got here is from N Enduri NFL from a non-Enduri. He's a fan of the show, as you can see. This is awesome. Psych is his favorite show ever. So a good pick to have on this one. I worry because, again, the only Tennessee Titan on this is Austin Hooper. So I don't know how much he likes Psych if he doesn't have a lot of Titans. I do love his quarterback, though. Joe Burrow, Matt Stafford to start out with, and then Zach Wilson as his QB3. I agree with that. Lock it down. You're done. You don't need any more after that. Joe Mixon, James Conner, Devin Singletary, and then Alexander Madison, like I mentioned before. There's Hassan Haskins. You got your Tennessee guy there, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah, and that's a good deep round running back that we were talking about. Like that's a guy that, again, I'm knocking on all the wood I have right now. I'm not saying anything negative about Henry, but Haskins, it does have the ability to step in and potentially be a league changer. So I like that depth pick there. And then receiver, he's got Evans, Keenan Allen, Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore, Tyler Boyd. So he's got a stack with Boyd kind of there and McPherson like I was doing. He's also got Joe Mixon, of course. So he's doing a lot of Cincinnati players. I'm a fan of this guy. But again, Scott, I guess let's jump to you first. What do you think about this one with Burrow at the 105, Stafford at the 208? Is that kind of how you do it, or would you go a different direction?
It's just like, I mean, I generally like to get early tight end as well. But when I don't, when I miss on them, the first build that you showed me when I got on here, and this build, same things. Couple quarterbacks, a stud running back or two early in the first 5-6 rounds. That's the way I like to start my drafts. I really don't feel like wide receiver. I feel like wide receivers' value is in their depth. So if you can throw a lot of darts at them, which he did, I would build a team like this. I would not wait that long on tight end once again, but I mean, that's just a me thing. I really like having solid tight ends in this league.
And it's really, I'm just going to say, it's really hard to not sacrifice something in Scott Fishbowl.
Right. You have to, yeah. Like I sacrifice the wide receivers clearly. That for me, a tight end in Fishbowl scoring, a tight end that goes 4 for 40, they're usually first down. So that's a double-digit day. And 4 for 40 is barely that big of a day, So
Gesicki can get that easily, right? That's exactly what you're talking about. Like Gesicki can get 4 for 40 without even blinking with Tua. I mean, like that's not asking a lot. You're exactly right. What do you think about this one, James?
I like this build. I think it's a lot of high floor guys and then some dudes with upsides. I mean, Rashad Bateman is a huge question mark for all of us, if we're being honest. I think everybody wants to believe that like that's going to happen. But his quarterback is still Lamar, and we've yet to see a prolific, passing sort of juggernaut offense out of Baltimore. So, that's one that's like if it hits, awesome. If it doesn't, he's got Elijah Moore and Tyler Boyd. But I like Burrow and Stafford at the top. I mean, that's baller.
Yeah. It's going to be hard. Okay. That's the first team I've seen with 5 Bengals. I want to say that's more than I had. So I'm a fan. If you count P. Ryan, that's 5. That's 5 Cincinnati players. You can't beat that. Your turn, Rocky.
Bad offense to have 5 players.
No, not this year anyway.
Okay, well, I'll do one more. You do one more, and then we'll call it a night on the Scott Fishbowl rosters. But this is from Nick Martinez and BR, who's in TA3 with me. Great guy. This maybe a build that Scott kind of likes because it starts with 2 pretty good. Well, Trey Lance is interesting. I'm curious what you think of Trey Lance because it's not really 2 stud QBs, but it's 2 QBs. We don't know what Trey Lance is.
We don't.
Anybody have any thoughts on Lance?
Well, if Lance struggles, all I see is Geno Smith, so that's not great.
I like the Lance Kittle. Well, I like the Lance Kittle stack. I think that's a fine idea. You got Herbert and Williams as a stack, and I like to stack in these big tournament type things, so that's kind of where my brain goes. But I mean, getting Kittle in the third at 311, I mean, that's tremendous value. I mean, I think sometimes people forget about him a little bit this year, but if Lance gets the starting job and they actually trade Jimmy G, Lance could be a top 10 QB easy, right? I mean, his upside is really high, but his floor is really low. So I don't mind going risk it for the biscuit at 211. You know what I mean? Like, let's go get some guys and let's go get the guy we want. And again, this one, if I'm not mistaken, was in Oakland, California. Is that what it says?
Yeah, it's kind of hitting.
I thought it was Oakland
here, but yeah,
but like that, you know, sometimes that has a hand in it too, where it's like, you know, these localizations of these drafts has really changed a lot of it too. And again, props to you, Scott, because that's brilliant. I mean, I'm drafting in Canton, Ohio, and I'm waiting to go I got Burrow in the first at 103, and I'm like 210. I'm taking Chase. I'm going to reach for him. Nope, I get sniped at 209. And it's like, of course I did, because I'm in Ohio. You know what I mean? Like, it just everything matters. All those little, like all the LA drafts, all those things, like all of those guys are drafting LA players, they're drafting California players, like Lance in San Francisco went at like 105, I think. You know, so like there's some love for that. And that's something I think that gets overlooked in the ADP. It's like, these are not your normal drafts. Like, these are local drafts. That is such a good twist. And it's such a good thing to see, because it's that in-person part of fantasy that we've been missing for the last couple of years. So again, massive love to you, Scott. I thought this was genius. But anyway, back to Trey Lance. I think it's a good pick. I think that the running backs are solid on this team and have a lot of upside, but there's a lot of risk in that second half too.
It's going to be interesting too, because I just look at it. I think his second, fourth, and fifth picks in Lance Williams and AJ Brown, I think they all have humongous upside.
Yeah,
but could all have pretty not great floor. I think AJ Brown has a decent floor, but could definitely, as his wide receiver one, I can see that not going well. I could see Devontae even outscoring him potentially, or just being so spread around that none of them are all that great. But Andrew, you want to bring up the last one, and then we'll finish off this segment?
We got the last one here for C2C Dynasty Merc, which Scranton, Pennsylvania. Now, this one is a real city, but it's kind of a fake city. And again, I thought that was brilliant. Like, where it's like Scranton, PA, we all know what that's referring to. So that was brilliant. But so C2C Dynasty Merc here went Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, Stephon Diggs in the third, Darren Waller, DJ Moore, Jalen Waddle, Jerry Jeudy, and there's that Cole Kmet guy again. So again, another one of those teams. We've seen some of these names, and again, not a single Titan on the squad. I mean, what were we doing? But I love Allen at 102. I mean, there's a very rare that Allen didn't go 101. So I thought that was an interesting. You got to get him if he's there at 102. Tua at 211, and it's kind of ironic how that lines up bird-wise. But I mean, Tua at 211 seems a little early, but it's get your guy season. So go do it. And I think Diggs again at 311 after the third round reversal. Man, Diggs at wide receiver 6, he could be wide receiver 1 again, easy. So it's just, again, a lot of value on that top half of that team. What do you think of this one, Scott? It's zero RB kind of, right? I mean, it's light RB.
I would have a lot of trouble without the running backs, but like, oh man, he's gonna have a lot of trouble.
He didn't even go that heavy on them either.
No,
like, he only drafted 5.
Like, Ramondre Stevenson is a guy. Sorry, my computer started talking. Ramondre Stevenson is a guy that I find very interesting that late, because if anything, if James White doesn't come back right away, or if he's hampered early, if he's especially if he's put on like PUP to miss the first 6 games, like, he could really be involved. And if anything happens to Harris, like, they showed that they are more than willing to give Stevenson 20 plus touches. Plus, Stevenson was handling, like, as the season went on, he was handling more and more passing work. So if James White is out, he could take entire drives and stay on the field for third downs. That is interesting there, and everybody loves Pollard. But man, I'd be so scared to walk into the league with these running backs, though.
Me too. Yeah. Again, what do you think, James? You on the same page?
You're going to have a weakness.
Same page. I could imagine weeks where he's like, I can't believe I have to start one of these running backs.
Yeah.
The chips don't fall the right way. You're basically like, what part-time player or backup or gadget guy do I actually have to start? And if it's a playoff type week, that's not ideal.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of weeks where the Henderson and Williams don't even get touches.
Exactly.
Like, so, oof.
It's an interesting build.
James Crochet.
And Will Fuller, which I love the free agent pick, right? Maybe Will Fuller's got some upside, right? Maybe he goes to Green Bay, as everybody says for every player. Like, maybe Julio lands in Green Bay and like the biggest possible upside, but maybe he lands in LA and plays with Stafford on the Rams. And it's like, oh, that's not great. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a risk, but I love it in the 22nd round.
We say this now and watch either Harris or Elliott get injured, or watch this be the guy that
knocking on wood
on an Elijah Mitchell type running back right at week 1, and then he has a starter all year.
Wow.
That's
killing it. Yeah,
I definitely spent a lot of money on Tyson Williams last year and regretted that. So that was terrific. Yeah, but anyway, yes, lots of good upside. I love this team. I think it's a really good, again, 0 RB kind of. I mean, 9th round, that counts.
Very strong at 3 positions. Pretty decently strong.
Yes. Taking a hit at the running back.
Or 4. That's those are 2 really good kickers too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so that's going to finish up the Scott Fish Bowl 12 rosters. Appreciate Scott popping on to talk about them. Yeah. James, I know we've kept you here a while. You still got time to talk about your Dynasty League a little bit before we sign off here?
Yeah, sure. Throw me a bone.
And Scott,
I will head out though, but I will say, go to roaddogsandrescue.org and donate there.
We talked about that at the beginning. Definitely.
We'll do for sure. Thanks, Scott.
For coming on, Scott.
You guys have a great one.
Thanks. Okay, so we are going to move on to our Find Me a Trade, but it's also a combo of just sort of kind of giving a little overview of James Dynasty League experience here. We talked about it a little bit last year when he was on. It's your only Dynasty League, correct?
That's it. It's the only one I got.
And as we mentioned, some heavy hitters in there, also some other Hollywood guys. I know Tom Everett Scott's in there. I think you mentioned a couple of writers are in there. It's a 12-team PPR Superflex League. There's no tight end premium, 25-man rosters. It's start 10, a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, tight end, that's Superflex, and then 2 flexes. I figured we could kind of get into some of the trades James has made already this offseason, go into some of his rookie picks, and then we'll talk about some trades me and Andrew found for him and see what James thinks of them. I will say, too, James is like one of it's not a super active league in the offseason, it looks like, but James seems to be one of the most active guys in there. He made 3 trades this offseason. I feel like if James didn't have a job where he's constantly, his time is all consumed, he would be the degenerate junkie like me and you, Andrew, and just, in way too many leagues. But
I love making deals. I love this is like I said, my only Dynasty League. So it's the only league where I can trade picks, which I'd never done before I joined this league. To me, the fun of the draft is how many deals can you make. That's how I've approached this draft every year in this league.
And I was just gonna say, last year when we talked about, we did the same thing, kind of talked about your trades, and I think most of them that year were also made all around draft time, and it looks like that's the same this year. And speaking of trading picks, the first one is that you traded Noah Fant for the 208, it looks like, which I don't have much of a problem with at all in a non-tight end premium league. Especially, this was, I think, after he went to the Seahawks, where I wouldn't have been as high on him. I like this trade. The next one we have is Tyler Boyd, the 112, and your own 23 first. And you did win the league this last year, so I think you're probably hoping that 23 first is also late for Irv Smith. And the 105, which after he traded Fan, it was kind of vacant at tight end there. So I can see that. I'd be a little hesitant to move my 23 first, just because I don't know how plugged in you are into fantasy Twitter, James, but people love the 23 first. So I'm sure the analysts love the 20. It's supposed to be a really good class. Yeah. But again, I get it. You're moving up. Yep. I think you're getting the better player. I'd rather have Irv over Boyd, even in a non-tight end premium. I mean, I remember last year I gave you a rough time about one of your trades, and I don't feel that way about the ones we have on the sheet here.
Yeah.
And even the trade I gave you a rough time about, I thought you had given up maybe a little too much, but you did get Najee, I think, and Rashad Penny back in that deal. Probably both who very much helped you in that title run last year.
100%.
Yeah. So, but Andrew, before we move, I'll read their last trade in a minute. But these two he got rid of the one tight end for a pick, and then moved some picks around and picked up a tight end. What do you think of these two?
So these two I thought were pretty good. I think Noah Fant for the 208 makes total sense. It's Noah Fant. I don't know. I mean, like, just kind of
non-premium, you're not getting much for
and then you get that second, which again, you never know what you're going to get. It could be as good as Noah Fant, but at the same time, I mean, you're adding a draft pick that you can move, which you later did, which I thought was good. I will say I agree with what Rocky said with Boyd 112 and another first for the 105. But I'm guessing, and you maybe can correct me on this, you had a guy at 105 you wanted to get, and it was on the clock.
He did. We're going to talk about that.
And that's, I'm just kind of putting it in there. Like, there was a guy you had to go get, and I don't hate that if that's the end result, right? If you're literally saying, I got to go get that guy, I totally agree with that pick. So again, I don't hate either of these. I think these are both very solid. I might not want to give up that much, but in every league, it's so different. In this league, you had to, and that's okay. That's not a bad thing. So yeah, I don't mind these at all.
And then I'll do the last one, and then I'll let James kind of just give his thoughts on these three trades. You traded Leonard Fournette and that 208 that he got for Fant for Hunter Renfrow 206 and a 2023 fourth. And in a minute we'll get into who we got with all these picks that we're talking about. But I don't hate that either. I don't mind moving on Fournette, especially I can't remember if that time was if he had signed back with Tampa or not. Because the whole Brady, I know he didn't sign until after Brady unretired.
We knew he was going to be in Tampa.
Okay.
But I just wanted to unload Fournette. But beyond this year, as you know, in a dynasty league, those running backs, the value just bottom out. And I felt like if I was ever going to get anything for Fournette, it had to be this year. And after we reported to camp, I didn't feel so bad about
Fat Lenny.
Yeah. Leonard 5 net. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think no matter what happens with Devontae Adams in that offense, Hunter Renfrow is always going to get hits. He's going to work. Yep. He's going to work those underneath routes, and he's going to give you a high floor every week. So,
yeah, I would say you got the better player, you got the better pick, and a fourth. This one's a phenomenal trade. This one was like, oh yeah, smash accept on this one. I love this one.
And now, going back to that second trade, I like I said, I don't mind the trade. I do have a little qualms with who he ended up taking at the 105. So we'll get into the picks. I feel a little overdrafted. Homer pick here, James. But what you want to tell the people who you took at the 105?
I took Malik Willis.
Yep. Super flex. Go get your guy.
It is super flex, but third round draft pick. That scares me drafting him that high. What do you think? I mean, I guess you follow the Titans. Do you think by next year at least he could be? Do you feel like he'll be starting, or is Tannehill still going to be there?
I feel like next year it's probably Malik Willis. Now, it doesn't mean that he's going to work out, but unless Tannehill has a career year and takes us back to the AFC Championship game, I think the writing is probably on the wall for old Tanny there.
Yeah, and I think I'm not positive. I don't have it up in front of me, but I believe his contract works out so they can get out on him after 2022 without too bad of a cap hit. Yeah. So the other two picks he made in the rookie draft were Zamir White at 206, which I like. I like Zamir, and Jacobs could be gone after this year. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option. And even though it's another homer pick, I like this one too. He took Kyle Phillips at the 412. He's a guy I was picking up everywhere.
Yeah.
Like he could take over that slot role eventually. It's kind of a lazy comparison, but that kind of the Adam Humphries kind of role. And I just that late, why not? Like, and you've heard glowing reports out of camp, like pretty much all off season about him too.
100% dart throw, homer pick, no question. Did I reach for Malik Willis? Absolutely. But the pick that I felt best about was Zamir White.
Yeah.
Because it feels like, I could have a starting running back as soon as next year.
Yeah, and he could have a role this year. I mean, we'll see how it goes. But like I said, it kind of go either way. They don't value Jacobs that much because they didn't pick up the fifth year, or they could run him into the ground because they didn't pick up that fifth year, and they're not worried about what happens after this year. So we'll see. But I think Zamir has a role. So just before we go into the trades we came up for you and finish off the show here, if you want to just give the people a little idea of how your time in the Dynasty League is going, what happened last year, and how you see your team now, and then we'll offer a couple of trades up for you.
Yeah, so I'll be going into our third season. My first season, I had never done a dynasty draft before. And again, I was working the phones and making all kinds of deals, not really knowing what the hell I was doing or what the ramifications would be. I lost Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that last year. Yeah.
So that was it. So that was it for me in season 1.
Yeah, that's not good.
Quarterbacks went down in flames, but it did get me. It did set me up really pretty for the draft, last year's draft, because it was so terrible. So it was a worst to first story, which is always fun.
We love hearing that.
And I grabbed Najee and Jamar Chase, and then I traded my 3rd first rounder for Jalen Hurts, and that's ultimately what won me a title.
Those 3 picks worked out very, very well.
Well, and actually, I wanted to run through the roster real quick before we get to the trade.
We should run.
I want to make sure we talk about that real quick because this is a solid roster, James. I got to be honest. This is what we like to see. QBs, you got Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, and then Malik Willis, of course, Tyrod Taylor. But like Burrow and Hurts is a top 2 starting quarterback. That's primo. That's what you like. Running backs, you got Najee Harris, Derrick Henry, and Rashad Penny. Again, chef's kiss. I mean, there's not much better than Harris and Henry in this year. I think those guys are going to stop. And then again, Penny could be a top 10 running back again. I mean, who knows if he stays healthy, as we always say, right? Receiver, you've got Jamar Chase, Hunter Renfrow. I love that. And Russell Gage is your flex. I love that. Like that, these are all guys that I think are studs that are going to get you points that may not be that flashy. Chase is, obviously, but I think those are all really good high upside picks. The Cordero Patterson's really where my question marks start, and it's odd. It has a Q on it. I don't hate it in a starting lineup. It's just like, I don't know what to do with him, right? Like you can't trade him. Nobody wants him. You're going to play him if he's a starter, but who knows how long that is. It's just like, I'm not sure. Just not
interesting sure too. In this league, he has RB and wide receiver eligibility still. I think most leagues, most platforms
that's
have
true.
moved him to running back. But
this is a flea flicker league, and on flea flicker, as of right now, he's got both, which is an interesting twist. Tight end, as the previously mentioned, Irv Smith. On the bench, I mean, Dontrell Hilliard, Chris Carson, that Zamir White you talked about. Receiver, you got AJ Green, Odell Beckham, Quez Watkins, Nick Westbrook-Akine, another Tennessee player, Devin Duvernay, Darius Slayton, Phillips we mentioned. You got Gronkowski still rostered. The question I had there is it just you're not sure if he's retired? Is it just like might as well hold on, or?
No, he'll end up probably hitting the wire as soon as there's a move worth making. That was the other reason why I took the Irv Smith trade, is because I thought I had another year of Gronk.
Yep. And then Tonyan too. I mean, you got an okay option there, Tonyan, if you have to, but they're getting older, and Irv is a little injured, so yeah.
So yeah, a lot of that was based on me thinking Gronk's going to be my guy this year, and Irv will be some depth. So we know that that's not how that played out, and now I got Irv every week.
It is what it is. Well, I know my trade addressed some of that, but let's start with Rocky's trade. Now that we've seen the roster, Rocky, if you want to get into yours and start looking at some options to maybe help our boy James out here.
Yeah, so I like we said, I think it's a solid roster still. And as I put on the sheet here, I said James just won a title, so I'm going to try and go for the repeat.
A tweak,
yeah. And what I wanted to do is, I feel like it's definitely a solid starting lineup. It's lacking some depth. There's not a lot on that bench there. I'm not adding a ton of players, but I am adding a little bit of depth. I have traded Najee Harris to the Podfather for Joe Mixon and Allen Robinson. And basically, you're tearing down a little at running back to try and get that receiver. I think receiver is probably his weakest spot. Irv's a little iffy at tight end too, but he doesn't have a lot of depth at receiver, like we said, after Renfro. Maybe if Beckham comes back, that helps a little bit. He hasn't signed anywhere. Hopefully, if you were to do this trade, he doesn't sign back with the Rams, because then you'll have 2 Rams receivers. Yeah. But I have a lot of high hopes for A-Rob this year. I think he bounces back big time. I think Kupp kind of has to regress, and I think Allen Robinson picks up some of that slack. I also think the Podfather, who you'd be trading him to, he's got kind of a youth movement going on. He has, I think I have it up here. He has like every rookie wide receiver in existence, pretty much. He's got London, he's got Olave, he's got Pickens, he's got Watson. He's also got Bateman. He's got Swift and Taylor, who are third-year guys, but still pretty young. So it's a pretty young. He's got Justin Fields. So he's got kind of a youth movement going on. He gets a little bit younger at running back from Mixon to Najee, kind of goes with this build. And he's got more depth than James does. He's got a lot more depth. He's got like I said, he's got the three running backs, plus Barkley, plus Damian Harris. He's got all those. Again, they're rookies, but a lot of receivers, and Allen Robinson. I guess I don't know if he really even has another vet receiver, but so that'll be interesting for him. But I thought it made a lot of sense, and I like the idea of kind of. I don't think you're losing a ton of production from Najee to Mixon. You're just getting a couple years older, and Najee isn't even as young, I think, maybe as some people think. He's only a couple years younger than Mixon. So
he's only 1 year. He's 24, and Mixon's 25. So he's not that much younger. And I'll just jump in here and say I kind of like the Harris side more. I think Harris is our RB1 potential, and I don't know if Mixon really does, just because that offense throws a lot. So
see, I'm the opposite way. I worry about Najee in that offense. I don't have faith in that offense this year. With that, I mean, not that Ben was very good, but who knows what Pickett and Trubisky are going to be. So.
They can't be worse than Ben. That's all I keep thinking. Like, it's got to be an improvement. And again, a rookie quarterback or a quarterback coming to a new team is going to rely on their running back. I just don't see how they don't.
I also worry if Najee can hold up to like a 360 touch load again, which is what he got.
That's a fair concern. Yeah,
they're going to ride him till the wheels come off. I mean, hasn't he already publicly stated that he's looking to get less work? I mean, how often?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that, straight James? And then we'll go on to Andrews.
I think it makes sense. I might actually be more excited about one of his younger receivers, since it's a dynasty league. And like you said, he has all of them.
I think it depends on which one. I was just worried there'd be too much value send him back. Like if you made it like an Olave or something like that he might not want to do that. That'd be too much for him. But I agree.
Did you say he had Bateman? That's intriguing.
Yeah. He does have Bateman, yeah. So maybe it depends on how much he likes Najee too.
100%.
Here's where I'm just, again, referencing the DLF trade analyzer is just an option. It's not the end all be all. This is not a Bible. It's just a calculator. But again, Harris is worth more than Mixon and Robinson. And then Harris is, even if you swap Robinson out for Drake London, it's still the Najee Harris side. So I partially look at this.
I will say I put this into two calculators. That, which I saw, DTC actually has it 2 points ahead on the package side. So.
Yet again, it's just a tool for this. But I'm saying more like if one of them has it way off, and I'm like, well, then hell, let me send it for Drake London. Let me send it for my best option. I mean, maybe this makes sense. And then if they counter, you're like, let's counter down to Allen Robinson and I'm fine, right? That's kind of where I like calculators, because you can maybe see, well, I didn't think of that. I didn't think I could get that. Well, maybe I can, And that way you don't feel too awkward about sending it. Like, Drake London and Joe Mixon for Najee Harris. Sounds a little lopsided when you think about it points wise, but dynasty wise, Mixon's kind of still a question mark to people. Well, Drake London's a rookie. You don't know what you're getting. He could be N'Keal Harry, right? He could be DK Metcalf. We don't know what he's going to be. So I don't know. Harris is a locked and loaded RB1 in my book. So there's people that are willing to pay up for him. Just my 2 cents.
And one other thing I noted, I wouldn't mind doing this also with Saquon and Mixon. Some people value Saquon higher than Mixon, some value him lower. I don't know how James feels. I don't know how the other guy feels. So it would depend on that. Exactly. But I can see an argument for Saquon over Mixon. And also, if I put on there, you'd be pretty Bengals heavy if you were to grab Mixon. You got Mixon, Chase, and Burrow. So that may be another reason. And maybe if he's lower on Saquon, maybe you can even get a little something added as a third piece.
Like Saquon and Drake London.
Or move it up from Robinson to say Bateman or something like that. Yeah.
I don't hate the gamble on Saquon. I mean, I think this season is going to tell us everything we need to know, but I'm pulling for the kid.
Same.
Okay, let's finish up here, Andrew.
Yeah,
as usual, we're very long.
My trade though is very much Bengals heavy. I like the Burrow Chase stack. I got to be honest. That's a killer, because again, that probably helped you win last year, right? They stomped in the playoffs. But I think you can trade down from Jamar Chase to like a T. Higgins and get some depth. So my trade was with our friend of the DAP network, I guess, Tom Everett Scott, where you would send Jamar Chase, Irv Smith, and Devin Duvernay, or pick any receiver at that point at the lower end, to the cast of Stomp for T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin, and TJ Hawkinson. And the thought process here is obviously Chase and Higgins, there's a gap, but you're adding the depth of McLaurin and Hawkinson. I think Hawkinson is better than Smith. McLaurin is significantly better than Duvernay, and that fixes your Cordero Patterson problem. Right, that adds another lineup fixer there, and I think Hawkinson is an upgrade. You're downgrading from Chase, which is hard to do, but anyone who's going to get Chase is going to have to pay for it. Yeah, he is one or two in wide receiver, depending on how you value him and Justin Jefferson. So this is the kind of trade. Again, in the trade analyzer, it was pretty even, but this is the kind of trade I send to be like, I'm not willing to sell for less than this, and just kind of be like, here's my number, right? And if I'm giving you Chase and Irv Smith has some upside, Devin Duvernay has some upside. I mean, he's not getting crap players in this trade, but I think you're getting a lot more value for your lineup, and it adds some depth and gives you a chance to repeat without really losing a lot. In, I don't know, you're still getting a stack, right? But adding T-Mac and TJ, I love those guys this year. I think they're both going undervalued. So that was where my head went. And as much as it sucks to send Chase, I'm a huge Chase fan, obviously, being a Bengals fan, but I'm a big Higgins fan too. So like, I don't mind that downgrade.
Also, you're selling. I mean, you might be selling as high as you can ever sell on Jamar Chase.
Well, and that's another question, right? Can his value go up from here? I don't know. I mean, a wide receiver one,
wide receiver one, yeah,
yeah, like it's tough. So it's sort of, you were looking at that before, like getting out before they tumble down. I don't see that happening with Chase, but might as well pivot to some other options that are probably all going to increase. Maybe your whole team increases.
Yeah. I love this if you can get it done. I'm a big Hawk guy. I love T also. I think that you could have a situation where they're both wide receiver ones. And, McLaurin is great. And he's not giving up much beyond Chase. I think you put on the sheet that maybe this doesn't get done. But
I'm not sure this gets done. And maybe you throw another pick in there. You add another player. You change Duvernay to someone. You add Patterson. I mean, like there's some ways you can make this. You could tweak this to get it done. And I know Tom Everett Scott's a big fantasy fan. He was just on Trade Addicts a couple weeks ago, and he does a lot. He likes trading. He likes trading and values and all this. Like, I think this could be one of those blockbuster Hollywood trades, like getting it done with two actors. Like, we know what we're doing. Don't worry about it. And I think it'd be a fun conversation between the two of you at least. So that was kind of where my head went.
I might have to kick those tires. Yeah, I like that.
Some throw it out there, see what happens. Maybe you come up with something that works, even if it's not this. Yeah. But yeah, that'll finally finish us up. I appreciate it, James. I appreciate you hanging with us this long. I want to thank you again for coming on. If there's anything you want to say here at the end before we sign off, anything you want to plug, anything you want to talk about, anything before we go.
No, I will reinforce, since we had him on the show for a minute, that being part of the Scott Fish Bowl is a really cool thing for all of us in the fantasy community. And following his lead, I'll be doing another run in the high stakes NFFC this year in their main event. We've got 6 of us all playing for the V Foundation and Connor's Cure. It'll be me, The Miz, Kofi Kingston, just like last year, Mike Fabiano, Liz Loza, and Jen Piacenti finish off the 6-pack this year. So if you're a high stakes player, I challenge you to join us, and we'll try to raise some money for another great cause.
Okay. Yep. Sounds awesome. Thanks again. I'll just finish up real quick with all our stuff. You can follow us at Dynasty Junkies or the DAP Network at DAP_network. All our host Twitter handles. I'll leave that for next time. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube so you can see when guys like James come on. And we have other shows on the DAP Network that go live sometimes. And if you do subscribe to the YouTube, also make sure you're subscribing to the pod. Give us a rating and review. We love to see that, preferably a 5-star review rating. But if the review isn't great, that's great too. At least we can figure out what we need to do better. So get those reviews out there. We love seeing those. So I think that'll do it for this week. Andrew, why don't you take us out?
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, James. It was a blast getting to talk to you and ham it up on the Dynasty side. Welcome anytime, of course. The invitation's always open. But for the rest of us, for everyone in the chat, tons of good fans in here. Junkies out.